Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor, OnPay. Without them, we could not be sharing these stories, so please support them so we can continue our work. And today on Atlanta Business Radio, we are happy to have with us Tracy Reznik, and she is with Jabian Consulting. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, Lee. Thanks for having me here.
Well, before we get too far into things, can you tell us a little bit about Jabian Consulting? Who do you serve and how do you do it?
I sure can. Jabian is a local model consultancy, management consulting firm headquartered here in Atlanta with offices also in Charlotte, Chicago, and Dallas. And we have an integrated approach to creating and implementing strategies for our clients, enhancing their business processes, developing human capital, their employees, and better aligning technology. Ultimately, we're all about helping clients remain competitive and profitable within their space. With over 20 years of consulting experience myself, I focus on people strategies. And in my role at Jabian, I lead our human capital management offering, which focuses on change management, leadership development, culture, organization design, and really all things having to do with people.
So now, walk me through kind of the clients that you have in terms of like the ideal client. They prefer working with a Jabian type consulting firm rather than one of the, kind of the big name, the consulting firms that suck all the oxygen and attention out of the room.
Great question. Jabian gets it done. Our slogan and mantra is a strategy that works. So we can be as strategic as you need us to be and then put on our tactical gloves and really get things done for you. So we are not ones to create a lofty, inspirational strategy and then walk away and leave you with a blueprint to nowhere. We are going to help you implement. We are going to leave our clients in a better space than they were when we got there. We scope our work so that you don't need us forever. We want you to be able to maintain the solutions that we help you implement.
Now, I recently was talking to the CEO, former CEO of a publicly traded company, and he was telling me that his board kind of forced him to hire this big name consulting firm and spend, and in his mind, waste tens of millions of dollars just because they thought that that was like the thing to do. It seemed almost like to cover their butt, That I would imagine your clients are at either have a different mentality or more kind of they're like almost purposely going the other way.
Our clients have experiences with the smaller boutique firms like us and with the big firms. And most of us at Jabian got started in the big five consulting arena, and we all have that pedigree. And the amount that I learned in my start there is immeasurable. But with Jabian now, especially because we're that local model, we have to get things right. There's a pressure on us because we live and work in our community. We may run into our clients at the grocery store. We may volunteer with them at the school or a church. There's no escaping. So our reputations are on the line. And Atlanta, especially, is a very small business community. It's a very large, small community, and word of mouth travels fast. And so we stand by what we do. And a lot of our work comes from repeat business, and executives that transition from one company to another often bring us with them.
So it sounds like you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the practitioner that has the experience because they've been there and done that with the larger firm, but then you're getting kind of that hungry small business mentality as well.
Exactly.
So now talk to me about how you're working with your clients when it comes to the pandemic. And this kind of, first there was the whole I'm working at home, and now now we got to go back to the office. Like, how are you helping them manage through this crisis?
We are helping them in a number of ways. But what I've specifically been working with clients on is that return to work or return to the office strategies. And the return to work versus return to the office, the semantics have changed recently because there's that revelation that we've always been working. The past 10 weeks when the pandemic really hit this market and we started working from home, we never stopped working. And so now it's the discussion around how do I return physically to the office? And there are so many considerations that go into this. And it's really a foreign concept at this point because 2 months ago, most companies did not have an approach for this. They may have had crisis communication plans, disaster recovery plans, business continuity, but you don't expect to use all of those plans all at once. So companies scrambled. There is a blank room survey that found that 73% of companies actually had no strategy to return to work just a few weeks ago. And so now people are talking about it and they're developing strategies or implementing them now. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, just what are some of the questions that these companies should be asking themselves when they're contemplating this return to the office?
The biggest question is when. In the news, you hear some of the larger technology companies that say we're never going back. And that's not realistic for a lot of companies. So when is the biggest question? But then there are questions underneath that. When are employees going to feel ready to come back? When is that comfort level on health and safety going to be there that I can bring people in? And then it's the how. How do I bring people in safely? How do I social distance? How do I take precautions? How do I phase people back in? And who comes back in first? And those are the types of questions that I'm working through with several clients.
Now, does it ever come up about the kind of the human challenges that going back to the office are going to have nowadays? Like with a lot of kids not being able to go to a camp or to a school or to a place where they're being kind of taken care of. And that's a logistic problem for the parent. Is that part of the equation as well?
Definitely. Whether it's childcare this summer with no camps, my kids' camps, they're usually at sleepaway camp. That has been canceled. And the unknown for August is whether school is going to start again. And I think a lot of companies will make the decision on the when once they know more about when schools and childcare options will open up. It does depend on the demographics of your workforce. There are some companies that have more of their workforce with parents and dual income parents. That's definitely a consideration. But aside from childcare, there's also a consideration of those that may have older parents that they're taking care of and responsible for, or any other type of immunocompromised family member that may also prohibit them from going into an office.
So I would imagine it's a case-by-case basis, but are there kind of rules of thumb, or at least that kind of best practices that you're seeing out there in terms of the most effective way to bring them back? Do you do it like all at once, like you're pulling off a Band-Aid, or is it, you do it kind of individually, or do you do it, staggered workforce, like some groups coming in Monday, Wednesday, some people are Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday we'll have off, or like how are you seeing that?
I'm going to give you the magical consulting answer. It depends. There are multiple ways you can bring people back to the office. The most popular ones I've heard about to be implemented or that companies are starting to are, number one, bring back the leadership team. Have the leaders role model the behaviors that they want the employees to have, from social distancing to mask wearing to safely collaborating with one another on site. Another option, another way of doing it is for asking for volunteers. If you are a healthy, low-risk employee and want to come back into the office, let's do that. There are ways to limit capacity in a building to make sure that 90% of your workforce doesn't want to come in at once. And there's another way that people are coming back in those waves that you mentioned. If employees come in on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the office is closed Thursday, Friday for sanitation and cleaning, and then another group of people come in the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This can be done, again, on that volunteer basis. It can be done by floor and by level within a building, or it can be done by teams. And I've heard of a couple different ways that teams are going back into the office. Teams can be split up into kind of A, B, and C, or red, blue, yellow. And red team comes in 1 week and the blue team comes in the next. There are other companies that are bringing in an entire finance team on 1 week, and then HR will come in the next week, and then marketing. It really depends on what the company wants to achieve by bringing you back into the office. What is the business need? Many of the executives that I've talked to have been surprised at the relative ease at which folks transitioned to a work from home environment. They expected productivity to drop or results to drop, and across the board have not found that to be the case. So productivity at home is relatively high, just as it was in the office. So make sure that you're bringing people back in to solve a business need and not just doing it to say that you have, because that could have the opposite effect that you want on your employee base that may not be ready, or even the perception of community partners and clients or customers.
How do you help the companies kind of manage the employees that say they're not comfortable for whatever? Like you mentioned, the elderly parent. If you have an elderly or sick parent at your house, you're not thrilled about bringing new germs into the environment. So just going to work, it may seem safe, but you're worrying about other things. So how do you make those people? So I guess you allow them to. You're more flexible with their work from home situation?
First of all, it's up to the company and the organization to communicate the precautions and the practices that they're taking. Are they limiting capacity? Are they spacing out cubicles? Are they designating hallways and stairwells to be one way so there's less of a chance for interaction? Closing down kitchens and break rooms, so limiting the shared space. Communication of what the physical infrastructure will look like and those expectations moving forward are really important for employees to understand and make an informed and intelligent decision for what works for them and their family and their particular situation. I think if there is an employee concern, that employee needs to speak up and talk to HR or talk to their manager, their leader first. Bring in HR. I strongly advise companies to also bring in legal counsel just to make sure that everyone is treated equitably, fairly. That's a huge driver of engagement. And so ask questions. Respect people's wishes, but really get at the why. What are employees' concerns? What is it that compromised family member or lack of childcare? Or is it that they just really don't understand what's going to happen at the office or why they need to go in?
Now, how have your clients or the clients of Jabian dealing with the new hires, like of recent graduates? I would imagine, since your background's in kind of human capital, and you might have some thoughts in this space about a kid just graduates and everybody's working remotely. The company might be hesitant to onboard a new person without kind of some face-to-face love and direction and mentoring. And have you seen companies dealing with these, the challenges that recent graduates are going to have?
I have to say, I'm glad I am not a recent graduate at the moment because the job market is tough. I mean, unemployment is high right now. There are companies that have furloughed and laid off some of their workforce, and they are just now competing with all the other recent graduates that are looking for work. Again, I go back to business need. And if your business is still growing, if you need to maintain business continuity at this time, companies are hiring. Jabian has brought on new employees during this time. We have brought on new interns. Onboarding in a virtual environment is possible. Would everyone agree that it's ideal? Probably not. But if your culture and your processes are strong enough, I think you can engage in a meaningful way with a new hire to get them on board and really integrate them into the company. I don't think it's impossible, but it does add a layer of complexity.
And is that something that somebody that they would hire Jabian to help them work through that if they hadn't or don't feel confident in doing that effectively themselves?
Sure can. Yes.
So what is your sweet spot in terms of clients? Do you work in specific industries, or are you kind of industry agnostic? What's the ideal client look like for you guys?
We are industry agnostic. We work across healthcare, telecom, manufacturing, logistics, supply chain, across the board. We target anywhere from mid-market to Fortune 100 companies. So we are non-discriminatory when it comes to our clients. We want to help our clients solve really hard problems. That's what, as a whole, we enjoy doing. And we want to help our clients do that. If they are at a standstill and can't figure something out, call us in and let us help you.
Now, has there been any silver linings in respect to the fact that now everybody's working remotely, maybe before they were ready, but they kind of had to? Is there any kind of things that they learned during this that might transfer beyond the pandemic?
I think so. I think there is a degree of connectivity that we're all learning about each other. I've definitely seen this from a Jabian perspective and from some of the clients that I'm working with now, because as we're on video calls, and those are very much encouraged, at a moment's notice, someone's cat may walk across the keyboard, or someone's kids may come in and sit on your lap. We are getting tours of people's homes and getting to know where they live and who they're living with. And I think it's a degree of intimacy, that a professional intimacy that we haven't had before, not to this extent. And I think if that level of sharing and collaboration can extend when we are back in the office, it can only make us closer and more effective.
Now, if somebody wanted to learn more about Jabian or have a more meaningful conversation with you, what's the website? What's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Best way is jabian.com. That's JABIAN. And we have a ton of thought leadership right now, specifically addressing challenges that COVID and this pandemic is bringing. And you can go to jabian.com/plan ahead. And there is a ton of information out there of tools and articles of how to address these challenges and how we could be of help.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and congratulations on all the success.
Oh, thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio. And remember, this work would not be possible without the support of our sponsor, OnPay. So please support them so we can continue to share these important stories.
Today's episode of Atlanta Business Radio is brought to you by OnPay. Built in Atlanta, OnPay is the top-rated payroll and HR software anywhere. Get 1 month free at onpay.com.